Hello everyone! I'm gonna flip my camera like this. We have a special one today with Kim, and I am so excited because he's actually um, the publisher of the books. So can't wait. Hey guys, how are you today? Happy you can make it. We are waiting for Kim. Kim is joining us very soon. I'm gonna invite him actually. Let's see if he's online. Kim invites. I'm so happy everyone could make it. It's like 10 a.m. in the morning in Australia, and I think it's 12 in Europe. Uruguay, that's so cool. Oh my god. I'm so curious how it is over there. Um, I don't know how I pronounce your name. Spiral. Uh, Let me see where Kim is. I sent him an invite. Oh, from Paris. Nice one. Ah, there's Kim. Hey Kim, I just invited you already. Accept. Like with Kim. I hope everyone has their questions ready for Kim because I can imagine you have so many questions for him. Ah, Kim is unable to join. Let me check again.
There he is.
Hey, sorry about the delay. I just had to get my coffee.
uh, I have a tea. I have a really cool mug actually with pizzas.
Oh, that's nice. And a dinosaur. That's
Yeah.
amazing. Wow, we have a
Uh,
lot of people in the chat, man. That's nice.
yeah. And the good thing is they are from all over the world. I saw Paris, Uruguay. Hi.
Elk Electronic, Dr.
Like,
Ripley,
yeah,
Chris. Good to see all of you. Nice.
all all the known people.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, that's so cool. How are
So
you, Kim? Good
I'm fine.
evening.
Yeah, what time is it? It's like almost 12 or so. That's when I'm waking up sometimes.
Yeah. Thank you for staying up that late. Like I know, like maybe you're also more a night person, but I can imagine that some people like to wake up early, but I'm not one of them. Maybe you're not either.
It's very different. I had a Zoom meeting earlier with someone in New Zealand, and that was
Hmm.
a morning person. But yeah, I can't tell you more.
No. Well, let's dive into this. So I think we are super stoked that you are on and like you are the publisher of the books and everyone here probably knows about all these books and but we are actually super curious to the man behind it and the story behind it because a book is a book with a lot of information, but there must be a place where it came from, where the original idea came from. And yeah, I actually am super curious about where do you, yeah, you come from Denmark, but the rest. I know you're interested in ambient,
Yeah,
but how
yeah.
did it started? How did your passion for music started?
Oh my God, how long should we go back, Nadja? I don't know.
Where
Um,
the magic happened?
I'm very traditional in the sense that I went to the local organ player in the little city where I grew up and went for piano lessons. And we mostly played cards and chess, and then I practiced my Beethoven stuff. So that, and I love that. That was nice. That was my little safe space, going there. And yeah, then slowly I got my, I think I begged my parents to buy an electric organ, you know, where you could choose sounds, strings and horn sounds and stuff. And that was when I was like, well, I don't know, 9, 10 years old or so. And then it went from there, tape recorder, you know, recording a lot of different stuff. So yeah, that's how it all started. But that's way back, obviously.
Yeah.
Most of my life I've been a designer, but I've always been playing music. And
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, you know, one day I thought it was time to follow that dream with that book you have behind you, actually, Push Turn Move, so that most people probably know. So that was kind of the merging between design and music that I had a passion for, still have, but for a
Mm-hmm.
long time, and you know, things came together and I could finally do that project. So and here we are today, like 5 books down the road. That's amazing, and that's because a lot of the people, some of them are in the chat, you know, a lot of people, also readers, supporters, backers on Kickstarter, have been, you know, supporting and cheering on, and I mean, that's amazing, and I'm so grateful for that. So
Yeah.
so it's good to be here.
Wow. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
that's so cool. Like, yeah, like I'm a big fan of the books as well, and I still remember that I wrote, I think, my first review for the book behind me, and I was very impressed by the way you can really tell that you are a designer. You can see that there's a really great view on the design elements and aesthetics.
Mhm.
Um, and and there is so much information about it, like that everyone just really wants to know, but it's captured in just one book, um, which is really
Yeah.
nice. But I, what is that? I see something in the chat. Mark the place in my book with my Bjooks mark. Sipping coffee from my Bjooks cup and keeping
That's
warm
cool.
in my Bjooks sweatshirt.
I don't even have a Bjooks cup here, but I will get one. Mm.
So you've been telling that you're a designer, but also like yeah, you were interested in all the gear and the music, but were you also a writer because there is so much written in there? So
Yeah, I think, you know, my first job writing, or actually when I was like 24 or so, when I was finishing up design school, one of the projects was actually to document what we've been through, and that was to do a book. Actually, we chose to do a book in Danish and English. That was about typography, very different, but and after that, I became employed on the design school where I was educated. I was there for like 5 years in a professor position, or whatever you call it. And again, part of the job was to document your research, your teachings. And so I actually started doing my first book with a colleague there who was my mentor, Henrik, and he basically, you know, we said the only way we could approach that first book was to do the design first, because it was about design. And it's
mm,
actually a book that is still around and it's still being sold. It's in Danish, but it's been there, yeah, many years. So,
it will be the
and so
favorite.
it's been part of my, yeah, but it's been part of my DNA, and I've always had this urge of, you know, when you get to know something, to also then did I drop out, or did we get some glitches,
You're
or
back.
was that? I'm
You're
back.
totally
Okay,
back.
cool. So I've always had these urges of this urge of, you know, passing on knowledge, stuff that you pick up, and then kind of try to make sense of it. And you know, it's like putting stuff in jars. You know, when you put butterflies and you collect them. You know, you
Hmm.
discover something, and you want to share that, or you. And Push to Move was actually just me starting to see. I saw these patterns, you know, between instruments. You know, why the
Hmm.
16 steps, why the 4x4 grid? Who came up with that stuff? You know, and all these questions when you start doing music with instruments. And so I set out to kind of find out and see what patterns, you know, the grids and all that, the circular things, and the way people interacted with the instruments. And that was just so interesting to me because I love these instruments. And with that background of teaching also in interface design and having to do with how colors work, the type and you know, layout and all that, it was just a natural, you know, thing for me to do that book because it wasn't out there. And I thought, you know, then I have
Hmm.
to do it like this, you know. And I think that's the best things that come to be is because someone sees that it's not there and they want it for themselves maybe, or they want to share that thing. And if you make an album that sounds like everybody else, you won't come far. But if you really go with your inner voice, I think that's the way to do it. And that's what I've been trying with these books. I can't make them ugly, I think. Maybe if I try hard, but I'm not sure I want to try. But I don't think I can either. So
No, they look beautiful.
thanks. Yeah, but people seem to like it. Let's see if the chat also likes them. But people usually say, it's beautiful books and hardcover and all that. And I think if you do something, you
Hmm.
just do it right, from the beginning. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the thing I chose to do, because otherwise it didn't make much sense to me. So
Mm. So you dedicated actually all your time to create the books because you were playing music as well, right?
yeah, and actually I was like, I had a job where I actually was about to start a business with a guy, and we started, and then these opportunities came up with the books, with doing that book, and I said, now is the time. I had the chance to actually meet Jean-Michel Jarre at that point back in 2016. In October, I remember he was playing in Denmark, and it was like, okay, I'm going for it. And then I actually quit that other company and that collaboration, and went all in on the book stuff. So and
Yeah.
and I had what I had at that time, so it was really great that a lot of people supported the Kickstarter, because that made me get food on the table too while I was doing the book. So
Well, that's important.
yeah, exactly. You need that for writing.
Yeah, exactly.
And coffee,
So,
lots of coffee. Yeah.
yeah, I know you with coffee. That's a good Kickstarter. Um, yeah, so yeah, you started the book, but did you got a lot of help as well? Like I see in the books that there were some other editors as well, and um,
Yeah, yeah, that's a good question, because again, as I said in the beginning, I couldn't be here where I am today, or Bjooks couldn't be here without the help of a lot of people. And obviously being Danish, and you can just hear my, dreadful accent and all that. And I wrote all this stuff in English, but Mike has been a really good editor. I knew Mike from like 2010, when I went to Arizona to play with these guys that and girls that made this Mike, you can write in the chat what now I forget, but it's the yeah, that stuff.
oh,
And,
Gypsy
and Gypsy
Witchers,
is
you're a copy editor.
yeah, she's doing an yeah, an amazing job. And so people that know the language better than me uh,
Yeah.
help me express what I wanted to express. And I've only experienced that stuff gets better when you're more people. You have
Mhm,
that saying, too many cooks can destroy the food, or whatever it is.
mhm,
And obviously that can be true, and you have to have someone to take the lead and all that. But it's sometimes have other people refining what you're doing, and looking at it from another point of view is really good. And that's why the books are as good as they are. I think that's because we have a lot of, I won't, the last one we did, Sense Gems, that Mike wrote,
mhm.
he accused me. He says it's my fault that he wrote it, and it is. I kind of forced him a little bit, but also I thought he was the right one to write it. And we had a lot of other editors, Chris, amongst others, Gordon Reed and Chris
Mhm.
Doty, and you know, so a lot of people helps, research, refine, fact check. So I think that's what makes the product so good. I really don't like to cut corners, to be honest, and that takes a few hours off my sleep, but it's worth it in the end, I think. So
Yeah,
that
it sounds like.
it's
Um,
it's
so
because the satisfaction when you're done is so much bigger, I think. That you knew you did the best you could. I mean, if you do an album, if you work a year on an album, you want to do it, the best you can. I'm sure. So
yeah, yeah, because you said like when you're done, but are you ever done with creating a book? Where does it
uh,
start? I'm very curious
That's,
how you create the concept and how you start making a book.
it starts in the head and it ends on paper. And then when it's on paper, I rarely want to pick it up for at least a few months, just only the first time to check it through. But when, these books go to print, I have checked everything I can, and Mike and the others, the editors, they've said also, we did all we could. And we always find
Mm.
mistakes anyway. That's how it is with print, that's a danger, but the excitement also. It's like doing a live show. When it's done, it's done. You can't change it. Obviously, books you can change at some point, but only so much. And so I like that fact. It's also a statement somehow. But obviously, they start in usually in my head because I
Yeah.
mean, it's where everything is created, right? The first time in
Yeah.
our heads, and I have, it's how can you say, Patch and Tweak, for example, the second book I did with Chris, and which I'm very grateful for having worked with, and I hope we will soon work again on another thing. But that came to my mind when I did Push Turn Move already. I was like, I want to do something with modular because, again, I needed that myself, and I didn't think there was something like that. And then when doing Patch and Tweak, I thought about, all these effects pedals that people use now with the synths. And I had started using them too, so I was like, we should do one of those also. And obviously my drawers are big, and my sketch pads are full of stuff, and I have a lot of ideas. I don't have any plans, not publishing anything for the next, few years at least. That's
Yeah.
that's an statement, but I mean, there's always, I think that artists that doing music, for real or whatever you say, professional artists, they have the same with you're never better than your latest album, or there's always something new, creative endeavor to pursue, I think. and
Yeah.
and uh, and also the when I see how people receive our books, it's just that keeps you going. I mean, how can it
Yeah.
not? So
Yeah,
yeah.
it's amazing. Like there's a really great community around the books I see, and there's so many people involved, and maybe also some people that still don't know about it,
Mm.
which I'm super excited that they get to know it. But
We'll
I
get
was
people.
wondering as huh? What did
Okay.
you say? Okay.
We'll get people that people don't know it. Yeah.
Um, yeah, so there's also like amazing, amazing pictures and also a lot of rare pictures, like of product photos. And I was wondering how that process is going. So, how do you create all these pictures and where do you get all these amazing photos from?
It's different from book to book. Actually, it's not that hard. What I've learned doing these books through all these years, if you ask, you can find out a lot more. If and we found out that, for example, Pedal Crush, a lot of these effects pedals are already out there, and the manufacturers or the resellers have photos of them. So why spend all the time, taking those photos when we can buy
Hmm.
them, or acquire them, or let people can help us in some way. And I think that's again, you have to do the best you can, but it's also about knowing where to put your efforts, so to speak. And obviously then you have some of the books like Push and Move, where we have prototypes and stuff, and people have sent photos, or I've had
Mm.
someone take a photo. And I think the most photo-wise, obviously the most intensive book was the recent Synth Gems, obviously, because that was a photo project from the beginning. The whole purpose was to document these in as exquisite photos as we could, by the help of some really great photographers, among them Peter Ma, who did the stuff in Switzerland with me. And I've been very fortunate to work with these people that have been taking these photos and doing a lot of photoshopping, which is also nice.
Yeah, that
Like,
works.
yeah, and photos come from all over the place, I guess. If you need a photo of an artist, you can start checking out their Instagram, their Facebook, their agency. you can start checking out other sources. I've been really good at that in the recent years.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Nice.
again about
Um,
so
mm. So you also have like some amazing interviews in these books and amazing artists you work together with. And are these people you already knew, or how did you got in contact with them? Yeah, I'm very curious to that as well.
yeah. It's not that I have like a little black book where I just, look up Trent Reznor or Hans Zimmer, maybe now, but that's not how it started. And I mean, I'm really grateful. Like, for example, I remember when I was at the Loop Festival in Berlin, the Ableton Loop event, and that was back in 16 also. And I poked Susan Chani on her shoulder while she was, or at the, I tried to approach her in a moment where it didn't, it wasn't an interruption. And I was just like this. I mean, I was just me, nobody knew who I was. And so, but she actually was extremely friendly and welcoming, and it was that really made me trust, I think, or that people would be friendly when you approach them. And I've never had someone, say, no, 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 or, everybody has always been friendly and interested, and maybe they didn't have the time or whatever, but, and you can actually get a long way by approaching people on email also sometimes. If you have the right intentions, if you have the right purpose and you have the right mindset, and I've never been, like, oh my God, I got to talk to this or that. It's not like that, because it's a purely, very, call it professional level, and so that's my approach, and there's also this thing that when you start talking about gear, you know, in this world we are all gearheads somehow, and you talk about musical processes and artistic goals and all that. And then people really like to talk also. So and I feel really fortunate that I've been able to do a lot of these amazing interviews. Obviously with the Moog book, we have the Moog people establishing a lot of the contacts also, and but otherwise, I mean, it's been approaching people in various ways, companies in various ways. And people are usually happy to talk about their creative work, like I'm talking about the books now that just got
Yeah,
made. So
yeah,
um,
yeah.
was that an answer? I'm not sure, but
It was an answer for sure. And
okay.
I also like the way you wanna support the women in the scene as well, and people to get the more a voice in there as well, because I think it's really important as well. Um,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. It's very. I must say, it's very dear to my heart. I have three girls, three daughters, and I know that it's important, for the next generations to have someone to look up to, that
Hmm.
they can identify with. And no matter how people identify today, I think it's important they have someone that can, that can mentor them, or they can look up to, and they can follow their way if they can't find their own. And I think when you publish things, you have a responsibility of trying to give people a voice, and give them some steps, where they can give them a staircase so they can take
Yeah,
their next steps in their artistic process, whatever that is. You know,
yeah.
it might sound a bit fluffy, I'm not sure, but at least it's pretty important to me that we, that we presented a really diverse what do you call it, picture of the artist. Um,
Yeah,
and then I really don't care what other people think about that. It's just important to
yeah,
me that we have, all sorts of people represented as much as we can. Sometimes it's hard, I admit that. And I think that can be done so much more within the music business, within the music industry, to make sure that more voices are heard and shown, And I can only, if someone is seeing this and wants to approach us, I can just welcome it.
Mhm.
We're open to everything. So
Yeah. I see that. I see that Buke stands really for that, and you can really see it in the books as well, I feel. Also because there are, I think, more upcoming women in the scene that try out modular, and you see more and more about it.
mm.
And just have a little bridge because I'm all the time looking at your modular case in the background. I'm just so curious what you're using because you still make music, clearly.
Yeah, I am making music, but I'm mostly checking out stuff. That's also a
Hmm.
way to make music sometimes. I have to be honest, today, these days, these weeks, these years, go by with me using all my time on the books as much as I can, obviously. And when I do music, it's to relax. I actually heard this, survey that when you work with your hands, you're much more focused. So for me, it's
Hmm.
really nice to turn around and work with this stuff than looking at the computer screen. I think that's true for a lot of us. And yeah, so but yeah, what can I say? I went down the Eurek rabbit hole at some point, and I don't know if we have to go through all the modules I have, and I'm not sure that's so interesting, but I can say that after doing patch and tweak with Chris, I do not have the same, gas, about gear acquisition syndrome. It's much more like, what do I want to achieve? How can I do that? Do I actually need that new shiny module with all those colors? And sometimes you
Hmm.
just do. To admit that sometimes it's just too shiny. Can't help it. so,
So
so
which
that's
one
it.
which one is too shiny now?
I think I don't know, but let me just this the Deluge is one of my
Oh.
favorites. It's still I love it because the interface is really interesting. The way you navigate, where you just you scroll up and down, or if you can see it, and you can scroll
Hmm.
also sideways if it's long enough. But there's some I like to check out these interfaces, different interfaces, obviously. So I have all sorts of stuff, as you can see. And the newest thing is the Hydrosynth Explorer, which I really like. And it's like me going back to some of my first synthesizers. Yeah, I really love it. And actually, at some point I talked to one of the guys who was part of designing it, and he said it was actually inspired after he read Push Turn Move, the interface. So that's I'm like, whoa, that's cool. so
That is
that's
cool.
yeah. So
Because
so
I
yeah,
would
that's
think like the sorry, your
no,
turn.
just no, just ask. I talk all the time.
I
I
have
don't
so
talk.
many questions for you. Um, yeah, because I can imagine like if you buy new gear or anything like it, you get like inspiration for creating a book, right? But now you say like some people just get inspiration to make something after reading your book.
Yeah, also that. That's like full circle. I don't know. That's like the Matrix or something. I'm not sure. But
Yeah.
I think also that how can you say it? I get the inspiration I get to do the books is more like a concept or an idea, and
Yeah.
it's yeah, I don't know how else to put it. I have obviously all the books right here. Doing this
Mm-hmm.
one patch with Moog was when we did patch and tweak, it was like clear to me that, some people can't just start with all this stuff. That's too much.
Mm-hmm.
It might not
Yeah.
be the best for everyone to start there. So I really had this urge of, I really wanted to do something where, how can we get people started, trying to make music in a more, or let them understand this field of synthesis and this type of instruments better. And we had a really good platform with Patch and Tweak, and so it was a no-brainer to do Patch and Tweak with Moog, I think, because the instruments are just so great and so inspiring to use also. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. There so is. Yeah, so I was wondering, like, because you started off with the whole case, right? I always wonder, because there might be some people that's just starting off with their own case, or how would you advise them going into that? Like trying out or just buying a full case, or yeah.
That's a really good question. Usually you would say that you would advise people to stay out of Eurorack. But
I heard that one.
yeah, yeah. It's interesting because I talked today with a sound designer for movies and soundtracks, and he said that the in that part of the industry, they don't want to go so much into Eurorack because they can't replicate the stuff they do often. So I mean, you have to know why you want to start with Eurorack and with modular. I mean, for me, it was like I wanted to explore new sounds and new textures. I thought, I had this idea of there was more there than what I could get out of the software I had. It's probably not true, or maybe it's both, and it's a hybrid thing today. But so I'd say if people want to start today, I actually started by buying secondhand a case with some mutable instruments modules in it, and then just tried to mess around with it. And then I found out that half the modules wasn't what I needed at that point. So I think the best way for people to start with modular today, to be honest,
Mm-hmm.
surprise, this one. Yeah.
Yeah.
But all the semi-modular, and I'd say, starting out with something semi-modular is really cool because you can start making sound. It could be something with a keyboard attached, and then you're off and you can make sounds and you won't have those, why is nothing happening? I mean, it depends on what musical experience people have in previously. But
Yeah.
it's, as you know, the goal we did, Chris and I talked a lot about with Patch and Tweak was, and Chris said that again and again, I want people to be able to make the music they have in their head.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a little bit weird for me because I've never had really any music in my head. It only kind of came out when I sat down with an instrument. It wasn't like I want to do this and I want to do that, and then I went to an instrument and did it. I was just messing around with the instrument, and then the music came.
Yeah.
That's always my approach.
Yeah.
But I think there's different ways of going about it, and I think that's one of the things that modular can offer also, that you can, if you know what you're doing, you can get really impressive results. And if you don't know what you're doing, you can get equally impressive results. I mean, so
Yeah.
you don't have to be a great piano player to get something out of a modular. I mean, so yeah, that can be one advantage for some people.
Yeah, that sounds really, I think indeed you have so many different approaches. Like one is maybe more a programmer, one is more like a musician, like and just playing
Mhm.
something and get inspired by what they do. So I think that's really interesting what you just said.
Yeah, I think
Uh,
people have so many different backgrounds and reasons why they come into the world of instruments and music. So
yeah. Are you still using plugins then? Are you still using a DAW and everything, or
to be
no?
honest, to be totally honest, and no one of you listening can say anything about it. I've not used Ableton Live for a year, I think. But also I'm using InDesign more because I'm actually doing books, right? So, and again, it's when I'm creating music, I want to get away from the computer. So
Mm,
picking up something else. And what I've been actually doing, I can tell you about that. I've been,
hmm.
let me just say, I just get this one. I'm getting smaller and smaller instruments because this
That's
is what you
cool.
can take anywhere. You can take this,
Mm,
to the beach, or whatever you want. And so actually, what is battery powered, like this little baby I got, this is the Hydrosynth Explorer. That's just, I love it. And a lot of this stuff, you can't see it all, but some of it you can. It's actually because it's smaller devices.
mm.
I I've never been a fan, or maybe it's because I've never had one. I've never had a music studio. I've never had a big room filled with synthesizers on every wall. I'm not really a fan of that. I'm a fan of, sitting down with one or two pieces of gear and then explore, deeply. And I think you actually, again, just that interview I had today, um, it was that guy started with 2 instruments and created a lot of crazy stuff with just those 2 devices. And I mean, sometimes you don't have to get a lot of stuff. You just have to have a lot of ideas, or you need to have time or focus to go deep with it. I
Yeah.
think that's actually one thing that Scott says in Pedal Crush when we did that. He said, if you want to start, just start with one pedal, and go explore it as much as you can.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's because if you have a lot of stuff, the same with plugins. If you have like 50 or 100 plugins, how many? You probably have more, right? You use them only this much, each of them, maybe a few of them you use a little bit more, but doesn't maybe not any one of them everything you can tweak out of them, and but again, that's also different from person to person. I like to go a
Yeah.
bit deep with stuff.
Yeah. I must agree with that. Like, oh, I see for myself actually, if I have an instrument and I master that instrument totally, then I feel also
Mm.
confident by using it, and the creative process goes quicker somehow than if you just touch it just one time in 2 weeks or something like that.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah. You know when to reach out for what, that's I think that's important, and also for like people who produce music on a very consistent basis, go into the
mm,
studio every day for 8 hours. That's tools. It's also instruments, but it's tools first and foremost to
yeah,
create a job. I mean, so
yeah,
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 that's a
and yeah. What are your thoughts about so the Push Start Move book? It's really about like layouts and interfaces and how to use different layouts. Would you do you think that a lot of these synthesizers and devices are actually quite similar in a workflow, or do they all work differently in your feeling?
there are. It's interesting because electronic instruments are actually fairly new when you look at it in the broad perspective, but not for us. And you can say just with mobile phones, look at how much happened since we had the Nokia phones or Nokia phones, and now
Yes.
we have just a flat screen, and people would say, "Where's the
Hmm.
button?" You know? And I remember when the first phone came that had a color screen. I was working with actually interfaces for phones at that point, and it was around 2000. And so I think obviously some, how can you say, some commonalities have established themselves, like having a shift button or a function button you can
Mm,
push on. You have secondary functionalities. You have that on obviously most, all interfaces have that sort of stuff. But other than that, I think there's a lot of different approaches, and you see even more approaches today on how you can create an interface. You see here behind me also stuff with touch screens, like
mm,
over here. Stuff with sliders, knobs. There's all sorts of stuff. And I think it's really, again, that's for me, that's what makes it interesting, obviously. But I think it would be boring if every instrument had, the same kind of interface. There's a
yeah,
difference to a bass, to a violin, to a guitar. Still, obviously there are some commonalities, but they're still different. But then again, I think it's also interesting that we have all these different interfaces, and as a musician, you have to, adapt and relate yourself to all these different instruments. And instead of just being, let's say, a pianist, classical
mm,
player, you can just, there's not so much to think about. What do the black keys do? It's not like that. So that's a lot easier, obviously. So that is out of the way, and I think that's where when you work the best with your instruments is when when the interface is not in the way, obviously. Just think about when driving a car, if you have to look down every time you change the gears, you wouldn't be driving for long, you know. So,
No.
right? So yeah, you just have to make sure that the interface is not in the way for people. And that's actually why I really love the Hydrosynth Explorer, where you simply push one of these buttons to get to a specific module on the synth, and then you get the controls up on the screens, and it's just, I love that.
Yeah.
So there are stuff that do it well, and there's stuff that where people try, and it might not turn out that well. But I really do not believe that anyone has tried to create an interface just to be evil to musicians. I know that some people, they really like to hate companies or particular instruments, but
Yeah.
sometimes you also just, have to, approach stuff with a more positive attitude, I think, and then get the best out of it. And if you don't like it, it's not for you. Just skip it and move on to something else. I mean, time
Yeah.
is, just, yeah, go with the flow, I'd say. If it doesn't,
Exactly.
if the instrument doesn't, talk back to you, then just you have to find something else, I guess. So,
Yeah.
or you have to work harder and try and decide when to
Exactly.
quit, or so
Yeah. Sometimes it pushes us actually out of our comfort zone, and that's actually a really good thing.
yeah,
I
I
think.
agree.
But yeah.
Yeah,
But yeah, it sounds actually. I was talking about it this week with someone that like all the acoustic instruments are quite like they're still super popular and mainstream, but if you look to electronic devices and electronic music, it's still not really mainstream. And while there is so much depth in it, and what you just said, there are so many different layouts and interfaces that could match anyone. What do you think about that? Is that something you would like to push a bit more to be mainstream? Because I see in these books that you really want to educate people with it as well. And yeah, what are your thoughts about that?
you mean if I think that we should have some kind of streamlining between
Yeah,
interfaces, or
yeah,
no, no,
exactly.
yeah, but I don't think we
Yeah.
should have. I mean, the Eurorack world, the modular world you see here behind me, that's so amazing because it's creative people creating instruments the way they think they should look. And I think if we already now start to tune into some kind of, how do you say it, standard, nobody's gonna try to achieve something else. We have to, I think should just keep pushing the limits. I mean, if you see
Yeah.
how instruments have evolved, electronic instruments have evolved since the theremin. Thank God I'm not, have to learn to play a theremin because that wouldn't go well. So, yeah, I could do that with my coffee either in one hand. It wouldn't work.
Hmm.
So, I mean, I think it's really great that we have all these, and I mean, it's really, if you think about it, think about being an instrument designer and actually thinking about how would people use this particular device to do that kind of music or that kind of music or that sound or whatever it is. I think it's actually a pretty big task, and some would even say responsibility. But I think,
Hmm.
as I always say, that those people creating these instruments, they are as much artists as the artists using them. And I think that's also one of the points I always want to emphasize, to actually also, and with that is what I hope, that we inspire people to create, start creating instruments, or applying for jobs to create instruments, because that's, every artist I talk to with some of these books, they are so grateful that there are someone that have designed that instrument that maybe they created their whole career on, based their career on,
Yeah. Yeah.
or just got started in music, and so they're forever grateful for that. And I think that symbiosis, or that kind of circular thing going on between instrument makers and music makers. I really like that. I kind of like that, it's like a giving and giving circle. It's the gift that keeps on giving. It's
Yeah,
music.
I love that.
Yeah. So,
It's also
yes.
an expansion somewhere. Like it never ends. It's always like evolving, and it's the same like technology, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you could say, I mean, I have to be honest also. Sometimes I'm thinking about, all this stuff, all this electricity we use, all these parts, components that has to be manufactured, transported, assembled, driven somewhere else, sent somewhere else. It's not a, I don't think it's sustainable in the long run to keep on
Mm,
producing so much, which we do today. But that's general,
yeah.
obviously. So what I think would be really cool is that more instrument makers would think in more sustainable, directions, both in terms of, battery operation or solar cells or, you know, obviously the materials also. So yeah,
Love that.
we will see what comes up. You never
Yeah.
know.
I think that's such a good thought because it is like there's so much material we use and we all love it, but it's great to think a bit more about our environment and world. Yeah.
Definitely. Are there any
Um,
questions from the audience? I can see any questions here.
yeah, I think they're
Yeah.
sharing their
Otherwise,
way how they work. But yeah, please drop some questions. Actually, I wanted to highlight a question of Brady. He actually won this week's challenge to send in the best question, which I think is really matching what we are talking about right
he
now.
won this one,
So,
right?
huh?
This one.
Yes,
He won
you
this one,
did.
right? Yeah. Good for
I
him. Congrats.
He asked, Kim, do you feel that the functionality of an instrument is more important than the way it looks?
Uh, to me personally, it's hard to say. You can have a really gorgeous instrument and you would sometimes keep it too long because it just looks so nice. But if it doesn't do what you want it to do, I mean, at some point you have to let it go, I guess. But I think it's a very personal thing. And I know that some people love their old ugly instruments or their new ugly instruments, and I think I'm perfectly fine with that. But I think obviously that the most important thing for something, if you create a device that has a specific purpose,
Mm-hmm.
it has to fulfill that purpose in a pleasant way. And that experience can actually make it beautiful. It's like the books we make. If they were just beautiful and you couldn't read all the words, if they were like in a weird language, Elvish or whatever, I mean, you would only keep them around for a certain amount of time and then you would get something else. So I think it's what we've what I've also been teaching on the design school back in the days, and it was always the functionality and the aesthetics, that combined with the financial limitations or possibilities, you know, those three elements, is what, creates a good instrument. If you can afford it, and if
Yeah,
it looks nice, and if it works great, and it sounds great, that's kind of the same. But,
yeah,
sounds great is also a subjective thing, personal thing sometimes. Obviously, there are technical stuff, but it's also very personal. So,
yeah. Wow. It's a very
did I
interesting
answer the
question, and
question?
yes, I think so. I think it's a hard question, hey, but as you are a designer as well, I can imagine that maybe it really goes hand in hand for you, or yeah.
Definitely. I mean, I'm pleased. I'm so lucky that people don't need to be taught how to open a book, at least not yet. Maybe in a few generations, I don't
Yeah.
know. But so that's easy, right? Doing books in that way. I mean, it's really a daunting task, and history with electronic instruments also shows us that the first ones creating them were engineers. They didn't think in usability or user interface design. Those things were not like invented at that time in the same way as they are at least today.
Mm-hmm.
So there are so much, could be color psychology, whatever, that
Yeah.
influences people in different ways. So yeah,
Yeah.
it is
Interesting.
it is important. Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, this question, I found it pretty funny because I think we all are guilty with this question. So, how should I approach the unfavorable impact of gear acquisition syndrome? Too much gear got out of hand.
Yay. Welcome to
Yeah.
the club. What can I say? Yeah, it's I think it comes back to a little bit of the stuff we touched upon earlier, right? With this thing about how much can you do with just one device or two units, whatever. I mean, I'm going to turn around again. Just something like it could be this.
Mm-hmm.
You can make a lot of, you can make techno tracks, you can make ambient, you can make a lot of stuff with just this little device. It's maybe not cheap. It depends on who you are. But obviously, it also has to inspire you. You have to sit down and feel good and feel that this is a cool, moment for me. This is what I want to do. And for some people, this is very inspiring. For other people, it's this, or for again other people, it's a guitar. I mean, it really depends on what you want to do with your music. Some people has this thing also behind me as a hobby, and they collect modules, and I'm totally fine with that. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that's why not. And then maybe they don't make a lot of music, and so I think you have to think about your gas. You have to think about
Yeah.
why why do you want a piece of gear? Why do you want a new module or that keyboard? Usually, you would think it's because it can do something for you that
Mm-hmm.
you think you need to be able to do what you want to do. Does that make sense? So you often think, if I get that thing, I can either create music faster, or I can get some sounds I couldn't get before, or I can look good when I perform on stage, or all sorts of things, or I can be part of the Eurorack club, or whatever people have of underlying, maybe psychologically emotional motives of doing stuff. And I think the way to fight the gear acquisition syndrome is to be very sit down and be very aware of why you want to actually get that stuff. And your first answer might be because it looks cool. I mean, I just wanted it. Everybody wants it, and it's for sale now, and everybody's buying it, and then you see 3 months later everyone is selling it again or whatever. So I love when people buy something and they post about it and they say, I just bought this. Do you have any good ideas how I can use it? It's like, why didn't you think about that before you bought it? So I think there really is this, and that's something also Chris says to me once in a while. I love that. I mean, I think it's something about also that this instant gratification thing, and this, I will be happy if I buy a new pair of shoes or a new whatever t-shirt or whatever. And there's something in our society that makes people think that. And
Mm-hmm.
you have guitar pedal companies, synth companies, they keep on doing their stuff because there's a demand. And we have to think about where that demand comes from. Because if we stop all music instrument production today, we would have enough instruments to create a lot of music for a long time. And that would be fine. And we could pick it up again in 5 years. And we would save the world for a lot of resources, right?
Mm-hmm.
But obviously, that would also make a lot of people, out of the job and all that. We want more instruments, right? We also
Yeah.
want to push, the artistic possibilities and for sound design and everything. So I think really it's just about thinking about, why do I want to do this? Why am I making music or creating sounds? I've been very um, how can you say, conscious about it when I started, because I actually wanted to do film composing at some point. Was very serious about it, and then I realized, I'm simply not dedicated enough to this game. That's going to be a tough ride. And so I opted out and said, okay, I'm going to do something else that is actually, that feels good still, and that is more my
Mm-hmm.
voice. And, it wasn't important for me to be famous or, do something that the world had never heard before. I just wanted to do music that I enjoyed and do it because of the fact that I enjoyed doing it. And if someone else found it nice, that was great. And some did, and that
Yeah.
was cool. And I think that if you do it for yourself, that's the best you can do. And also, if you want a module, though no one else wants to buy that, buy it anyway because you want it. I mean, that might take you some new places. I think the worst thing is that when people buy something because everybody else buys it,
Yep.
and they don't think about why. Everybody said, get the big version of the hydrosynth, get the normal hydrosynth with the touch strip. And
Mm-hmm.
I like, yeah, that's really cool. And I really, I would probably get that one day. But these days I don't have the time to explore that, and I don't have the space for it right now.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm fine with the Explorer, and I just want to explore it. That's why the name is so cool also. So, I mean, yeah, that's a long answer on gear acquisition syndrome. There's
Great.
probably others who can help people with that stuff. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Think in the meantime my image flipped, but that's okay.
that's
I
okay.
wanted to check some comments, but
Well, we see you from another angle now. That's cool.
yeah, I mean, hey, it's my Europe and my Australian side. But yeah, well, I think I really want to ask you the last and final question. I think a lot of us are very curious what is coming up, and if you can tell us something, what's gonna happen in 2022, and yeah.
Yeah, that's an interesting question, and everybody's always love to ask about, what's coming next from Bjooks. And I usually say that I can't talk about it, but I know it's going to be a book. That much I know. And also I know that we're coming out with at least 2 books next year, maybe 3. And also, yeah, what can you say? Obviously, because of, the whole situation right now in the world, it's a bit tougher to ship books around, and the price on paper is going up, and production. So we have to do our stuff. I really want these things to come out. We have 2 very serious, very interesting projects coming out around summertime. I think they might be out maybe a little bit before that. I can say only that they will be. What can I say? Usually, when we do a new book, it's something that people didn't expect. When we did
Mm.
Synth Games, nobody knew it was coming, besides Mike and a few others. And he's taking over the chat now while he should be working, but we'll talk about that later. But so I think it's going to be an interesting year for Bjooks. It's going to be hopefully a good year for all of us. Hopefully, we'll come out of this whole COVID situation, or at least, things will stabilize a bit more. I'm really looking forward to Superbooth, that time in May in Berlin, where hopefully things will have opened up. And my plan is that we have a much bigger space for Bjooks this year at Superbooth, and I hope that people will look forward to that. We have something coming out actually next week, maybe even in the weekend, which will be a surprise for quite a lot of people, I think. That will not be a book. It will actually be something people can listen to, and it'll be a Christmas present from the whole Bjooks team, and it's a wonderful present, I think. And it's also a little test, you can say, on a concept we want to pursue, and I think that people will really like. We'll see about that. So that I'm looking forward to. And then there's so much to do all the time, but yeah, these are the 2 books that I know is coming out next year. Is gonna be really cool, and it's not gonna be something people expect. And I hope to have something out late next year also that people will not expect either, and a little bit different kind of book. So what can I say? But I mean, there's so much to do, and also I know that people like to suggest sometimes which kind of books we should do, and also some
Mm-hmm.
people ask us about not to make them so heavy, but they make a really good self-defense weapon. I mean, you can kill a person with just smacking them in the head with a
Oh yeah.
trophy. Yeah. So, but I mean, for us, it's also, or for me, with the company, it's company-wise, it's also a question of how can you say consolidating, or making Bjooks a more solid company, because it is challenging times, with production and everything. And I think with these, two titles coming out next year, people will see that Bjooks is definitely here to stay. I mean, also with you now, Nadja, you're on the team now, which I'm extremely grateful for, and you're doing an amazing job. And all the people we have now around Bjooks, it's just so positive and inspiring to me, and I really enjoy what's going on now. So yeah, it's hard. It is actually hard to sleep sometimes because there's so much going on at the same time, as you also know.
Yeah.
But I can only say to people that really they should sign up to our newsletter, stay tuned on our socials, because we have so much good stuff coming. Also on the Instagram channel, right? All the interviews you have lined up for next year. It's gonna be really interesting. So
Yeah.
I hope we can give people something back also. I feel that we're doing that, and I feel, I kind of feel the love from people. I really love when people write,
Mm.
that book and that book, this and that for them, and it makes the whole thing worth it. And the also the pride that people take in participating or being featured in the books. I've even had, when I went to the printers, we do the print start on the books and check out, with I have to just show, this whole thing about the cover on Cinch Gems, choosing, this lining up here. I don't know if you can see it, but
Mm.
this up here and all that.
Finding.
You know, yeah, when I work with the people at the printers in Denmark, and come to the print start, even the guys on the floor, they're really, they're really doing their job and take pride in it, and everybody's just so, how can you say, doing their best, I think, and that's what I really appreciate, and I'm grateful every day for that. Also,
Yeah.
when we talk about our books. So, what can I say? I don't know. That
I
became a bit,
think,
but it's nice. It's so nice.
yeah, that's so good to hear. And I think you get what you send out, and it's totally you. Like you are putting so much love and effort in these books and the people you work with, and I think we all can can agree to that. So, oh, you're hanging a bit. But yeah, and I also want to thank you big time because yeah, the journey has been so far so amazing, and it's so great working with you and seeing everything evolving and knowing what's coming next year. It's like so
Yeah, so
yeah,
grateful. Yeah, I think it's gonna
yes,
be. Yeah, people will see that something is happening, and that's gonna be
yeah,
nice. So
yeah,
yeah, and I really want to thank people for hanging on in the chat. So and I hope that people who watch this will just sign up to our newsletter and stay tuned, because we really have a lot of stuff coming. So
yeah,
people have to hang on
yeah,
now.
yeah. Hold on tight, guys.
Yeah. And remember
So
to get the t-shirts.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I want to thank everyone. Also, we're gonna peep out for 2 weeks for holidays, and then we are back with a full month of new live streams. Like the lineup is like insane, I can say.
So
Um, yeah, so it will be very fun, like different stories and everything. So I think I want to wish everyone great holidays, and it was great meeting you. And thank you, Kim, for today's session. was really
I think
amazing.
thank you for all people listening also.
All
See
right.
you around.
Have a great
Bye.
night.
See you
Bye.
too. Bye.